parts for the Astra 400. These are the parts for the slide. I've got them laid out here. Firing pin setup. This is the extractor setup. Went ahead and got it laid out, and now we're going to put it back into here. So, without further ado, your spring. And the way this spring is set, it's kind of curled on one end, and that end, it's got a curl to it too. If you end up with a curl on one end and not on the other, you might want to look into getting the curled area where it goes against the extractor. I got to turn another light on. Hold on. So, go ahead and paint a little frog lube down in there. See if I can zoom in. Be a little easier. Frog lube got me. Now, since I put frog lube down in there, I don't really have to worry about getting frog lube on my extractor. Make sure you're free and clear, got a good bit of sponge in there. And you've got a number of these little guys here. The ones, and you'll be able to reference back to my disassembly video. What you've got, and I'll see if I can help you determine which ones are the ones you want. I'm going to lay them all out here. Make sure I got them all. Alright. Basically what it boils down to is you've got, I was thinking there was 5. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe those are the only ones. Okay, anyways. What you've got is you've got a short one right there. You've got one of these with a short cleat on it. Then these two are basically identical, except for this one's a little bit longer. I don't know how much of that was supposed to be like that or not, but you end up kind of like that. And from what the best that I can make out and tell, the long one with the medium sized 90-degree area and the short one are what we're going to be using here. The short one is going to go where the extractor is. That's your extractor pin. And what I'm doing is I'm pushing down on the back, compressing that spring at the same time to get that pushed in there. Use this brass punch here. go. And what I was doing was I was holding it with these fingers. I got it in the V right down here. Had them wrapped around there. Had my punch in there, and I was holding the punch with those two fingers. You just have to feel your way through it. Alright. Make sure everything moves, does properly. You're good there. Now, throw a little frog lube on our firing pin. Firing pin spring. There's a bunch of springs you can reference back and see, but the firing pin spring will fit over this shouldered area of the firing pin, and it is about as long as the firing pin. It's going to go just drop down in there, and you should be able to get it to seat on home. Now it's not going to protrude because of that spring, and yet the spring is shorter than the firing pin, but the wall of the breech face there, the wall of the breech face there is thick enough that it won't let that protrude, or it shouldn't let that protrude on its own. Now, your next part here is going to go in, and this is going to be a little tricky. The deal with this one is, I don't know if you can see, let me see if I can get to a good angle here. No, I wasn't able to get to a good angle there, but the way that this pin goes in there, it actually goes at an angle like that. And so, with it going in at an angle like that, that means that you need to have this turned with the notch up and say towards the 1 or 2 o'clock position, where that can fit in there. Might be easier said than done. The notch will go to the back, and if you've got it upside down, you're going to turn it. Actually, I told you wrong. I was looking at it wrong. The notch is going to go towards the front. Get our firing pin back in there. It's been one of those days. Absolutely one of those days. Alright, again, notch to the front. Get in there, make sure everything works. Before you even bother, I would make sure that whenever you squeeze this in, your firing pin protrudes. And it is. Now it's not much because I can't get it to protrude all the way just by pushing it with my finger, but I can get it to come down there. So you're going to have to push this in order to get your pin in. But once you get it pressed in just a little bit, the pin will grab it. There we go. I'll get a couple of pieces of brass here. Just remember to take your time. You may have to work on it a little bit like that, and then go in here and actuate that, press it in a little. Because what you're trying to do is get that across that channel and get the end of that pin into its hole, which can prove to be a problem if you've got that spring loading it, which we do. I wanted to see if I'd be able to get it started without pressing in on this, and it appears the answer is no. So what I'm going to do is, I may have to rig something up here, but for right now I'm going to see if I can just press in on this by hand and then push right there. Doesn't appear that I'll be able to. I'll be right back. Something else that I'll show you, a way to determine which one goes where. If you look right here, you know you're going to have one with a longer flag that goes here. If you take one and it doesn't fit, you know that's not it. So that means that one of the other ones has to, and there it is. So that's a good indicator as to which one it is and which one it is not. And here's where I've rigged this up. We'll see if it's going to work or not. But I've got this clamped onto the V in the block, and my clamp up underneath the table holding it down. It appears to be pretty sturdy, so we'll see here if we can get this through. Right here's the pin that I'm trying to get through. Push that in. May have indexed it just a little. What I'm doing now is I pulled it out a little bit just to make sure that I can spin it the right way, because if it's not indexed properly, it won't go back together. And it appears to almost be indexed right. There we go. You can get these hooks up underneath there to do what you need to do. Well, it slipped. Get your hook underneath there. Alright. And I believe we are almost home. Very close. And I believe that's got it. Alright, I've laid these out to try and let you guys see how this all is going to go back together. What you've got here, there right there, your takedown lever, it'll go in from this side. What you've got is right here is the pin that goes through there. Okay, That is also the pin for your trigger. That's the longer pin with the short flag on it. Right here is the detent spring, and on these detents, the good thing about them is that really the detents will only fit in their own spring. I mean, you know, swap them out and everything, they're all going to be a little tight, but this little detent and its spring, these are the ones that I get it in there. These are going to fit right down in there. And what that is that's the detent for your takedown slide catch. Okay. Little pin there. That's the pin that goes through the trigger and the trigger bar. This spring here, with its detent, see it's a little button looking detent, it goes inside of the trigger. And then of course, like what we said, that is the pin for the trigger. Now, down below here is this piece here, and that piece fits below the trigger. It actually fits right in like that, and it gets this one little different looking spring. It's different than all the rest because it's a little fatter and a lot shorter. It fits right in the bottom, and this shorter one with the longer flag is the pin for it. Now that's that grouping. Let's move up here to this grouping. Your hammer, you've got this shuttle here is what actually connects to your trigger bar. I would call that maybe your disconnector. It gets a spring in the back, and again, this spring, you know it's this spring because it fits. I mean, I don't mean to be a smart ass, but that's really, it's that simple. This is going to fit down inside of here like this. It'll slide in. This is your pin for your hammer. That goes right through there. Right here, this wire spring fits into the side of this button here, and this goes right down in there, actually, just like that. And the wire fits in there, and then it clips into that and goes around this pin to keep it in. Alright, we got that talked about. Now, over here, this is your grip safety. You've got a spring that slides down into there. Up here, you've got this little lever latch. It's going to fit in. As a matter of fact, I believe that it's like this. I'll have to double check. I'm pretty sure that's the proper way for it to fit. I'll double check though. Either way, it's with its pin. This is your hammer spring, and it's to bookends. You've got the concave one, goes up to the trigger, or to the hammer. Hammer fits right in there. The convex one goes down, and it'll fit through the frame and the hole right there, the round hole, and it actually touches right there. Now it's contained, so it can't slide off of that, but This goes right in here. And you guys will see this all, but it all fits right in here. And this pin goes through. And this pin. I had them sitting right there. They got moved. And of course I'm going to do all this, but I'm just showing you how it'll work really well to segregate the stuff. That pin will go through there. That pin will go through there. So now that I have picked it all up and moved it around, you can rewind a little bit and reference back and get your groupings. And now I'm going to start putting it together. Going to put the trigger bar and trigger and everything back together. If you didn't see the section, if you skipped ahead to where we're at right now and you didn't see the section that lined out all the different parts and had the detents and everything all where they needed to go ahead and back up a little bit and find that, because a lot of this will be assumed that you have watched that. Anyways, the gist of it was your springs and detents, they're only going to fit in the places they're going to fit. So try every spring in every hole and every detent and every spring, and you'll see which ones work and don't work. You know, if you have to do it, process elimination. I'm going to go over here to the vise, and I'll be right back. Got our trigger upside down in the vise. Take the detent and spring. Drop it down there. Good idea to go ahead and double check, make sure that your pin does fit. It's not got burrs on it or anything. And your trigger will go just like this if it's upside down. And the very first time here, I'm going to attempt to just press it down without using a punch or anything. It's not going to work because I got to move my trigger. I'm going to have to raise it up some and angle it just a little bit more in order to make clearance for the reset. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to push it down. You may not be able to see from that angle, can you? Maybe y'all can see from here. I'm going to go ahead and get my pin started back there. I don't know why that made me laugh. Just the way it just barely jumped made me laugh. Almost. Looks like I'm going to have to move it just a hair more. Well, good Lord. Monkey screwing a football. There we go. That is started. And doing stuff like this with these pliers, I'm not going to squeeze very hard. I'm just barely going to put a little pressure on it. Just barely. There we go. And now that's done. Like I said, don't know how much of that you saw the back of my head or what it was, but either way it's done. There's 1,000 ways of doing that. You could have gone in here and depressed that ahead of time and then put your bar in. There's a lot of ways you could do it. And the way that I do it is a lot of times not the right way. As has been pointed out by a number of concerned viewers. But that's fine. I'm willing to learn from any source I can learn from. And if there's someone that's got a better way of doing it, or they think I'm doing it wrong, I welcome constructive criticism. As long as it's constructive criticism and not just straight, being rude and bad-mouthing. Alright. Be right back with another segment. Trigger and trigger bar in now. Just goes in here from this side. You're going to slide it. I'm not sure how much of that battle I'm going to actually put in, but I've just been fighting and fighting and fighting to get this trigger and trigger bar assembly in. The trick is that you have to start the top of the trigger before the bottom. The top has got to tilt in. It's got to tilt in underneath there first. And the catch with that is that the spring and everything in here wants to keep the trigger tilted back, but you've got to tilt it forward. So what you do is you come in here and you hook it up underneath there, and then you've got to take like a punch or something in here and push on the front of it or on the top of it while you move this trigger bar down. And all of a sudden it'll just slip right in, it'll clip right in. Make sure you keep the trigger bar off of the side of your frame there. That's part of what makes it so hard, is getting that where you're not gonna scratch everything. Alright. Now what I'm doing here is just moving that and lining it up. Line our pins up. There we go. Trigger is in. Now that that's in, we're going to install the next piece down the line. Now this one could prove to be fairly tricky as well. That spring goes in the bottom, and it sits in here just like this. So the idea is to fit it down in there, but you got to get that spring compressed at the same time. Going spring first. Got to get the spring over that ledge. What I've done is I got it in there and I'm pushing it down with this punch. And get my pin. There we go. Make sure that we're tapped home. We are. And now that is done. Alright. Now, we're going to go ahead. I had to think of where we're at here. See this hole right here? We're going to run our spring and detent. That one's going to go right down in there. Little frog lube. This is our takedown selector. Takedown selector. I think I just made that word up. Our slide lock, takedown lever, whatever you want to call it. Whatever it is, I'm lubing it. Yeah. That's what she said. Got your detent in there. This is going to go in right here. And in order to get it to clear, you want to have it about like that. But you got to get in here and push that down. And to do that, I'm going to enlist the help of this one here. What you got to do, you got to get a punch that's at like usually half the width of whatever the plunger you're pushing down, because you want to give that other half that this is not taking up, you want to let that other half be taken up with the pin you're trying to install whenever you get it pushed down, as it notches down a little bit. Maybe that made sense. Push this down. That did not do what I wanted it to do, but that's alright. Maybe you all can see it from that side. We'll go with a flat bottom punch there. There we go. Just pushed it down, got that over its edge, and pulled the punch out, and we're in business. Alright. This can go in at any time. I mean, well, right now it can, but it's just going to fall out until you're ready to put, until after you've actually got your hammer and hammer pin in. I wouldn't even bother with this. So the next thing that I am going to do is going to be working on getting the hammer in. Get your spring in the back of your little disconnector shuttle, whatever it is. Flux capacitor, I don't know. Paint that with a little bit of frog lube. Alright, goes in like that. Make sure you can see good here. Alright, here I'll actually turn this around. We'll do it this way. It'll go in from either side. And if you look in there, it's got a couple of channels that it will ride in. Now, the disconnect, or my trigger bar is getting in the way a little bit. What I'll do with it is just pull it down, and that's gonna allow my disconnector, flux capacitor to slide up there. Well, my spring came out. Get the spring in there. Get it into its grooves. Like that. Well, I will be damned. There we go. All right. The shuttle is in there, or disconnector, or whatever. I gotta keep saying that because I keep saying I'm calling it the wrong thing, I'm sure. We'll set this aside. Everything's alright. Always saying alright, alright, alright. What the hell that's about. Now, get you something to line up your hole and just run your pin through. Simple and easy. I'm going through the other side now so I can have it lined up well. And this is nothing more than just wiggling it until you get it through. It is It's being stubborn. Maybe it's got a burr on it. Damn, everything about putting this thing back together is fighting me. I'll go to a brass hammer. Hit it without worrying as much. There we go. And there is that. Next thing here is going to be taking your spring, and you'll see right there you've got some reliefs. That's going to fit in there like that, and it'll just slide right down there. And that's how it rolls. If you hadn't noticed, a lot of this seems to be modules. Do a module here, do a module there. Those are together. Alright. Now, I'm going to tackle the hammer. That hammer down. You want to let that just go straight down. It's going to have to line up with the hole in there, the tunnel. Here, the green, you can see the green round hole there. It's going to need to line up with that. So you want to let it go to the front. And that hammer's going to have to go underneath there. Now, let me see if I can show you here. See the hole right there that the hammer pin goes through? Watch when I pull the trigger bar down. See that shuttle or the disconnector or whatever was able to push forward. It was able to spring forward. You're going to need to get it pushed back. And when you do, push it back some. Your trigger bar will catch it. Well, we're bound. There we go. It is just jammed a little. But anyways, it should go right on back. Oh, what are you jammed on? Getting caught on something. Ah, there we go. So right here, it's gone down. It's been able to go down just a little bit too far. You can't really see there, but it's right there. It should be pushed down. There. Just by barely pushing down on it, that's going to allow it to go back now. Switch to brass. Now watch right here. There. It clicked in. Now we're still protruding just a little bit into that pin area, and we'll move that here in just a second. Take a hammer. Take that pin. It's gonna go. You see where that is right there? See how the tail that's coming down? That's wrong. It needs to be down into the mainspring hole. That's right. You don't see it hanging out on that side. You don't see it hanging out on this side. Pull that pin out, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to take, this punch is a good size. I'm going to run it through the left hand side, and that's going to allow me to line up my hammer. And if you'll see right there, I've got in the hole right there, I got it lined up with the hammer, but I also was able to push that shuttle back some with it. Now I can take this pin and use it to push the other pin out. You're just replacing, is all you're doing. What I did, in case the camera didn't catch it, I just had it through there and I just pushed on this and wiggled and pulled this one out as I did, keeping the tips of them together. Trying to use the polymer there because even brass will sometimes mar stuff like that up. Alright, now we've got our hammer in. Our guide is in the proper place. And now if we want to, we can come in here and we can put this piece in. See right there? That's going to fit right down in there. The end of this hook is going to go into the side of that. There's a hole right there, and that's going to go into there. That's how that'll go. Now we may end up having to remove this until I get done because it may not stay in there. Because the grips and everything are what hold that all on and together. So we'll see. But now we're going to tackle the back strap, which is actually the grip safety, and the rest of our firing system here. Alright. Got your back strap here. Now what it's going to do, you want to make sure this is in the up position. And that's going to hook right in there. Now the spring is going to get compressed against the back here. And just compress it right on down until it clips in, and there you go. Now while you're holding that, Right here, concave part goes up, and it's going to go into the hole, the round hole in there. It's going to go all the way up there. Now the way this is going to work is this is going to compress that spring. It's going to go all the way up into there. If you cannot get, once you've put this in, if the hammer is laid way down and you can't get it to come up, take your disconnector shuttle, and what you'll do is just pull your trigger bar down where this will clear it, and then take that disconnector shuttle and get something on there and push this back, and that will allow that hammer to come up, because that's where it needs to be. Listen, too, in order to compress your main spring, your hammer spring, the hammer needs to be in place and it needs to be in the up position. You need to make sure that your plunger there is right. Your spring, main spring, needs to have the concave section forward, and you need the magazine installed. You have those things upside down here, clamped in the vise. Right down here, this is the bottom of the hammer. You want to get that spur, you want to get a hold of it and get it where you can lean it back, because if it's just laying down in there, when you go to put your main spring in, it won't connect it properly. You've got, let me turn my viewfinder here on the camera where I can see. You've got to make sure that you have the concave part going towards the hammer. It's going to fit right down there. And see, that actually, I don't know if you can see, but it did not go in properly. What we're going to do, we're just going to keep on working with it until you get a hold of that part. And there we go. Now I've got it. And you can take and push down on it, and if you can push down on it and that doesn't move there, then you know you've got it. That thing needs to be straight up and down, and you're in good shape now. This again here. Make sure you got your spring in. Make sure that spring's in there. Hook this in and get your setup where it's held properly. Get your magazine catch. And we're going to try and just bulldoze this thing down like that, but it's not going to work. Alright. We will go about it this way then. I'm going to tape this. Got it taped on there now. Maybe we can do something. Shove that down. Got her pinned through there. Alright. Now maybe, just maybe, I'll be able to get this down in there. Nope. It has been an absolute booger. This is definitely one of the harder functions I've ever tried to do, putting a gun together. I'm not going to go so far as to say the hardest. Now that is looking like decent progress. I call that being so stubborn that I got it to work. Now the catch is going to be finishing it. Wow, that right there was not easy to do. I'm not gonna lie, not one bit. That's one of the more sucky jobs I have ever tried to take on while working on a gun. The only thing that I can think of right offhand that has been worse is my epic saga getting a North American Arms 22 micro revolver back together, which I have still not finished. So anyways, there's that on the Astra. We're going to re-blue all the parts that we scuffed, just touch it up a little, and put the slide on and wait for the grips to come in. I got the Astra to the point where we're ready to put the slide back on. I think I've already filmed this, but I'm going to film it again. Get your barrel. Let me get my viewfinder turned right. Your barrel, I've got it my slide upside down. Barrel, you're going to have the lugs up. They will fit through there. Lugs actually down because the slide is upside down. And then you're going to see right down in there, there is a recess that will allow these lugs to fit into. Once you have those lugs turned where they're up and out of the way, then you can take the slide, fit it over, and you'll want to go ahead, hold on here, you'll want to go ahead and cock your hammer back and run your slide on. Then what you're going to do is you can see down in there, right down there, you're going to see those lock-up lug area. You're just going to move your slide back until the barrel gets over those lugs to where you can rotate it and lock it in. Rotate it. So that barrel is locked in now. Now that that's done, come back here, you'll take your recoil spring, this locking mechanism here, and you're going to have the end barrel nut. Spring And your locking cup goes over that way. Now the way that this goes on here, see the tangs on this nut and the tangs right there? You want to stack them up. They should look like that. Not like that. You want them stacked in line, and you want them to be sideways on the barrel. You do not want them at the 12 and 6 o'clock position. That is incorrect. Run those down, and once you get them down in that barrel, the lug flush with the end of your receiver, then you twist it 90 degrees, and when you twist it 90 degrees, this collar here will pop up. May pinch your fingers, but it's not bad. And on cue, and now I present you the Astra 400 reblued. I've got new grips on the way. That's why the grips aren't in it right now. These grips were pretty old. They've been chewed on by some worms or something. And so I just got some new ones in for the guy. There's the magazine in. Magazine does lock the slide back. Good stuff there. Now on these, as far as I know, you have to drop the magazine now in order to get the slide to drop down. I haven't seen that there's a functional lever anywhere that you can access in order to get that to drop. And I will say this. When you've got that slide locked back, this magazine is very hard to get out because the same spring that is responsible for the hammer is responsible for keeping tension on the magazine. So it's definitely got some power behind it. But this thing is just smooth as butter. I can't wait to go shoot it. I shot this gun, if I remember correctly, back in 95, maybe. And so it's kind of strange to see it here in this shape now after I've redone it. So now what I'll do is I'll go through, and any places that need just a little bit of touch up on the bluing, I'll hit those, and then we'll wait on the grips. I just reblued the old hardware here. I'll show you here the difference. These are nice grips, that's for sure. There are some minor differences because they had to make these to where they'll fit a few different ones, and that's alright. The Astra had a number of different models and different years that it was made, of course, like everything else. So, but yeah, they're going to look real good on there. They are going to look great. Check clearance for that pin there. It's looking like that pin may keep us up in the air a little. And it is. I don't know if you can see there. So what I'm going to do look and see. I want to see if the pin keeps this old grip up. No, that one lays down. Just got it kept up a little bit. Alright. Well, what we'll do is edit it just a little bit. I'm not going to use that. I don't know. That might end up soaking that up. That'd suck to have brand new grips and then have a silver mark down them. Well, we'll just leave it at that. I'm not going to mark on them. I know that right in there is where I'm going to need to work on. What I'll do now, I transferred just a little bit of that mark. That's all I needed, is just a touch of it. Now that'll come off. I know that's metal, so that's not going to be a big deal. As a matter of fact, what I'll do is just use some barricade. Instead of using a solvent, something that might harm the bluing or something like that, I just use more barricade, which is what all the blued parts get treated with whenever they come out of bluing. Remember, you can always use your oils and lubricants to cut paints and things like that a lot of times. Okay, so now I know that right there is where I need to hollow that out some. And I'm going to do that with the Dremel. But before I get to that, I'm going to check this other side here and see if anything is going to cause it to stick up. It looks like we'll be okay. So they've got an indentation here for this. I'll try and look and see if it's going to do a good enough job or not. Yeah, that's relieved just fine. Alright, I'll get the Dremel and we'll get that fixed. Now I'm going to use that bit there. Notice how I've got it set far back in there. That's because I don't want it hanging way out. I want to have as much control over it as possible. And I'm going to take my Dremel and actually hang it up a little higher. I said I was. Here goes the old monkey screwing a football routine. Cue the circus music. Alright, all we need is a bear riding a motorcycle and we'd be set. thing. Does work. I'm going to have to go just a little bit deeper with it. We're good. Fits up nicely. So I'll go ahead and put the other side on first. And I am going to use red Loctite on these. I don't plan on them having to come back apart. And it's in steel, so shouldn't have any problems there. And since I'm reusing the old hardware, these threads aren't in tip-top shape. Had to work a little to get it to start. I'll be hitting the rest of that up with frog glue here in a second. Alright, let's frog lube the rest of this. And the reason I'm frog lubing these new grips is because I want them to last good, and this frog lube will help keep them from fraying, drying out, Now it'll be a little slick, and we'll have to wear some of that frog lube off, but this gun's, since it's chambered in Largo, I mean it'll shoot the other calibers, but this gun's better off to, you know, to be pretty for the most part. Nothing wrong with shooting it here and there, but that's some pricey shooting, that's for sure. And I don't know if any of you guys have ever paid any attention. I hadn't, not until this one came along. Just go take a look and see what reloading dies and stuff cost for the 9mm Largo. It is astronomical. I about fell over. I thought it was a joke. The joke was on me, though. Evidently. So there we go. Got a good coating for everything external. We'll let it just chill and soak this up. It's already been treated and everything, but I'm just giving it another good once over, and then we'll wipe it down and it's done. For all practical purposes, it is finished. This will be the last entry for this in the video series. But this is 9mm Largo. I'll probably do some videos of it being shot once I get some ammo in. Thanks for watching. I just looked and y'all didn't really get to see it. So there it is. Hope you like it.